If you're a mom and you are struggling with the 18-month sleep regression, I might have a solution for you. This might even work if you have a younger baby, if you have an older toddler. I recently went through this with my 18-month-old and man, it was rough. I feel for you so much if you're not getting any sleep right now, because that was us for like 2 months straight and it was horrible. I do not wish it on anybody, and if you're going through it, I feel for you. I really understand how you feel. So let me share the things that helped me with my 18-month-old to get her sleeping through the night, and let's jump right into today's video. Hello lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joining you from Adeline's room. She's over there watching Curious George with her sister and my husband, so hopefully she's good to go for a little bit. Anyways, the title of this video is very interesting. I did not think I would ever have to make a video like this. But here we are. Adeline really struggled with her 18-month sleep regression, and we could not figure out why she was waking up literally for chunks of time between 2 hours to 3 hours. I think once she was even awake for 3.5 hours in the middle of the night, and they call those split nights, and we could not figure out what was causing it. We tried everything. So I'm going to detail the things that helped us, the things that did not help us, the things that helped us in conjunction together, and what we're doing to better her sleep now that she's 18 months old. So let's get right into the video. I have a lot of things I want to share, a lot of things on my heart. If you're going through this right now, like I said in the intro, I really feel for you. I understand how hard it is, and the tears and the just drain emotionally that it puts on you as a parent, especially as a mom, a nursing mom. Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother level. So I'm going to share all of my tips and tricks, my secrets, the things that helped us, very much helped us, and I've searched all over the internet for these things, so stay tuned. So when Adeline started going through this, it was right around the 18-month mark, and I had forgotten that there was a regression at 18 months. With Bethany, we did go through a little bit of a regression, but it was almost like I didn't notice it so much because Adeline was already born by the time we went through this. Adeline was like 2 months old when Bethany was 18 months old, because they're 16 months apart. And not only that, we had sleep trained Bethany by the time that Adeline was born. And so we started sleep training Bethany at like 6 months, and then we re-sleep trained I think every 2 months up until Addie was born, and we didn't really ever struggle a whole lot with her sleep. There were times when it was hard to get her to go to sleep, but we didn't ever have chunks and periods of time during the night where she was awake for long periods of time. I think maybe we had a couple weeks of that and it was done. But this time around, as you know, your second child always is different than the first time around. And the second time around, I feel like I knew nothing about sleep, nothing whatsoever, even though Adeline was already 1.5 years and the things that I was doing were no longer working. So let me give you a little bit of background so you know kind of like where I come from and what was going on at that point. Adeline is currently almost exactly 20 months old, and we started going through the sleep regression around 17 months. And right around 17 months, I got pregnant with our third baby right before then. So not too much before. I think I was probably 2 months pregnant when the sleep regression started really hitting us hard. And that's when my milk supply started to dry up. But not only that, we decided that it was a good time to introduce bottles, because Adeline would never take a bottle. She's only been exclusively breastfed, which was such a difference from Bethany. From the moment she was born, we never did formula. And consequently, she rarely had bottles, even though we would do breast milk here and there in bottles. So we had the combination of that, and because she was breastfed, she also, I don't think it was because so much she was exclusively breastfed, although I think it played a part into it. She also refused to take a pacifier. Ever since we got her tongue tie released and her lip tie released, she has hated every single kind of pacifier. I have multitudes of pacifiers that I've tried, and none of them worked. And so it was, I would put her to sleep nursing her, and that's just something that worked for us, and it worked for like 17 months straight. It was great. And then until it didn't. And I had no recourse. Like I had nothing to go off of. I felt like I feel almost like sad to say this, but this is how I felt. I felt like Adeline was not my own baby because I could not satisfy her. I could not put her to sleep. I would turn into a sobbing mess every night at bedtime, and when she would wake up multiple times a night for feeding, I felt like I was failing as a mom because I did not know how to put her to sleep. And it was really, really hard. I was a wreck emotionally, and I started having Roberto help me put her to sleep because I could not figure out how to do it. I would try to put her to sleep and she would get so upset because she wanted milk. But at this point, my milk supply has started to dry up. So slowly my milk supply was waning away. She was weaning, but it was kind of like a process that took place around the same time as the sleep regression happens. And so all of that combined made it into a cocktail for perfect disaster. And we were struggling a lot. So what we started realizing is that we had been putting her on and off because we have a company, and there's just certain days of the week where we don't get them to bed at the time that we should. And so they were going to bed later than they should have been, both girls, but it was really affecting Adeline's sleep cycle. So what didn't work, we started doing, I think one of the first things we started doing is we started giving her regular bath time. Not that we weren't bathing her before, but we tried to increment the amount of times she was having a bath throughout the week, and that alone did nothing to solve, like, she would sleep, I guess, for a longer period of time during the beginning of the night, and then she would wake up and there would be no milk in my boob, and we would give her a bottle, and none of that would seem to satisfy her. So she would dry nurse to sleep, and that's kind of been the solution. But she was still waking up multiple times a night to feed, and then waking up for large chunks. So that by itself did not work. Then we alternated, Roberto and I would alternate holding her for hours, rocking her. I would sit here and rock her to sleep, trying, my best to hold it together. That didn't work. He would hold her and walk around the house for hours, and that didn't work. We tried the sleep training method that we tried with Bethany, which is the it's called the longer and longer method, where it's not a cry it out, but it's a modified version of cry it out, I should say. You don't let them cry it out like the Ferper method, but you do kind of let them fuss a little bit, and if you notice that they're crying a lot, you go in immediately, and then you extend the amount of time between when you go in. That's the explanation of that. So we tried that, didn't work with Addie. She just gets super upset. And so at that point, we were kind of like, okay, well, what else can we do, And we were desperate for sleep because it had been weeks of this. So Roberto started driving around with her on the freeway, and we'd come home, and sometimes that would take an hour and 2 hours, I think one time it took 2 hours of him driving, and it was just like not sustainable, obviously. And so that didn't work. And at this point, we were like, okay, something has to be done. And none of those things by themselves worked. So those three things. These are the things that helped. It didn't necessarily, none of these things necessarily solved the problem, but we started noticing a trend towards better things after this. And then there was one thing that definitely worked, and I'm gonna get to that. It has drastically changed the way she sleeps, for sure. So stay tuned for that. I'm gonna share that in a few minutes after I get through this list. So what connectively started improving her sleep was we moved bedtime earlier. Now, moving bedtime earlier can be a little bit controversial because I know you still want to have your freedom, but honestly, if you want to sleep at night, you might need to look into like changing your kids' bedtime a little bit earlier. For us, it was earlier because we needed to she needed to be sleeping by 8:30. And so we noticed when we started moving it collectively a little bit further back, because she was going to sleep at like a couple nights a week, she was going to sleep at like 10. That's really, really late for an 18-month-old. And then 9:30 or quarter to 10, and then even at 9, that was too late for her. So we started moving it further back until we were putting her to bed regularly at 8:30. And when we started doing that, we started noticing she started sleeping longer stretches. She started sleeping from like 8:30 until like 1 or 2 in the morning, instead of waking up at like 11 and only sleeping for like a couple of hours at that point. So that helped. And then the next thing we did is I changed their nap schedule. So for the longest time, Bethany and Adeline have been on the same nap schedule. They would go to sleep at 11, and they would both nap great. They would not both nap great. Bethany would nap great. Bethany's always been a pretty good napper since we got her sleep trained. Bethany would nap from 11 till about like 2, and they would have lunch together. But Adeline would nap from 11 to 12:30, and then I would have to keep her quiet for like an hour and a half, but I could never get Adeline to take a second nap. For months it's been this way. So I think she was extremely sleep deprived, and on top of that, they weren't having lunch before their nap because of when their nap hit, and I didn't want to change it because I was too scared of transition, to a different nap time. And I was talking with a friend about 6 weeks ago maybe, and I said, hey, do you try to feed your boys, because they're a little bit younger than my girls, I said, you try to feed them lunch before their nap? And she said, oh yes, absolutely, we do lunch before nap. And I was like, okay, I feel like a lot of moms do this, and I feel like I've been so off track. And so we switched to keeping them up until 1 and feeding them lunch before they go to sleep, and then they have their bottles and they go to sleep. When I did this, Adeline started sleeping a full 3 hours for her nap, which she needed desperately, either to be in a second nap or, to have her first nap be longer, and I couldn't figure out how to extend it. So that's one way. Just push your nap time out a little bit, get their bellies filled beforehand, and you'll probably notice a change in their sleep patterns and a trend towards sleeping a little bit longer because they're satisfied, they're not waking up hungry for lunch. And so that really, really helped a lot. And Bethany is still sleeping the same amount of time, and it gives us more time to do stuff in the morning as well, which has been great. So changing up nap schedule, figuring out that really helped. And because she's sleeping more during the day, she's not as tired at night. And it's weird how it works with kids. If they're overtired, they sleep less. The next thing I changed up is she is now 1.5 years old, right? And I started looking into, like, at what point do you introduce a pillow for a child to sleep with at night where it's safe. And I found that once a child's shoulders are larger, wider than their head. Once their shoulders are wider than their head, you can safely introduce a pillow for them to sleep on. And Adeline's, I looked back at pictures even before like 18 months, and she really still had the same petite shoulders, almost the same size as her head. And then in the last 2 months, they had grown quite a bit. And so I figured she's probably waking up uncomfortable on her bed. So I introduced a pillow. She started sleeping so much better at night. I would almost be able to lay her down, and she would kind of just lay there and relax. And I could tell that it was time to have introduced that. So introducing a pillow helped a lot as well at that time frame. Obviously, look into it yourself, ask your doctor if you need that to feel safe, and do what you feel is best for your family. But at that point, definitely felt like she needed a pillow to sleep. Okay, now this is the one thing that started helping us immensely, and that was introducing something called Magnesium Lotion. So one night, my husband came into the room so excited. He had been rocking Addie for I don't know how long, and he came in and he told me, hey, she's magnesium deficient. And I was like, what? Because I had that thought like 2 months prior when I was praying about the situation, and I felt like she had some kind of deficiency, and somehow I stumbled upon that. And I had forgotten about it completely, and my husband was like, I really feel like the Holy Spirit told me it's a lack of magnesium. And so we looked into it, and he's like, and I just like, I've done all this research like in the last 30 minutes that he had been with her. And he said, doctors have found that when children are deficient in magnesium, it shows up a little bit different than in adults. And with kids, they'll wake up for periods of time, like having split nights where there's 2 to 3 hours in the middle where they just will not go back to sleep. A lot of restlessness, a lot of fidgeting, and high-pitched crying, which Adeline had been doing all of those things, and none of the things that you usually will get a child to sleep will work. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot that I had the same thought. And so we really believe that the Holy Spirit revealed it to us. And we got her some topical magnesium lotion, which is specifically formulated for babies and children. You want to make sure that it's specifically formulated for them. And what I think happened is that she had been getting an amount of magnesium from me, because I'm on prenatal or postnatals, And so I think she was getting enough from me from my milk, and she was sleeping a good amount of time at night. She was waking up like once a night when I was, you know, previous to this. And then she was waking up 2 to 3 times a night, not wanting to go back to sleep, and all of the issues that we were having. And so when I started weaning her, she stopped getting it from me, and she wasn't getting it from her diet because it's in foods that she's particularly picky about, like dark leafy greens. And I was just like, oh my goodness, how would we have ever known that? Like, it's such an obscure thing that parents don't talk about. I've never heard anybody talk about, and I want to share it with you because this lotion has saved us so much. It's the Little Mo Maggie Magnesium for babies and children. I'm going to link it down below because this stuff works. It really does. We rub it into both girls' feet at night because we started noticing such an immense, drastic change. Like, we put it on her and she slept through the night the first night we gave it to her. That is how much she was lacking this essential mineral. So make sure you get something that's a good quality. I will link this one down below if you want to purchase it. I've recommended it to somebody already and they have gotten it for their kid that couldn't sleep at night as well. Same kind of story. And I know that it will help you if you've tried everything. Please give this a shot. I was very skeptical. It had great reviews though, and the things that I had read with children who had similar symptoms as Adeline had the same results. And if it's not a magnesium deficiency, no big deal. Like, you'll figure it out. I know that you will. You're smart. You're a mama. You got this. But if it is that, and if I can like possibly help you, how I wish that I had stumbled upon this weeks before I did, then this will help you. So since Adeline was born, she had only slept through the night about 10 times, I'm pretty sure, or less than 10 times. And she was waking up maybe once a night once it started getting a little bit better, once we were past the newborn stage and everything. But since we started using the magnesium lotion, she has slept through the night about 60 to sometimes 70% of the time. And we've been using this for like 3 weeks now, and it really has made a big difference. On the nights when we forget to put it on, like multiple nights in a row, we do start to see a difference in her sleep, where she doesn't sleep as well, or she doesn't sleep as long for that first time. And if she doesn't sleep through the night, and we've been putting it on her regularly, she will wake up to eat, to drink a bottle, which we are, you know, slowly weaning her off of that as well, but we're taking it one step at a time right now and just figuring out the sleep issue, and then we'll figure out the weaning from bottles and from me and everything later. That's kind of how I like to do things as a mom. I like to figure one thing out first and then move on. But when we when we've regularly put it on her and she wakes up in the middle of the night, we give her a bottle, and it takes me 20 minutes to put her to sleep, which is nothing like compared to 2 or 3 hours. So I know it works. Can definitely confirm that it works. This is my honest, heartfelt review. If you need help, try this and see if it works. And if not, you'll find out what it is. I know you will. And maybe something else in this video will help you. But that is the main thing I want to say about that. So in conjunction with the magnesium, there's some other things that we've been doing nightly that have also helped and have improved the quality of her sleep. This is the main thing, but there are other things. Obviously, praying over her sleep. We would have not known about the magnesium lotion had we not been praying and seeking the Lord for answers, because he's the one who told us. It wasn't a doctor. He told us. And then another thing also is adding more protein into her diet, especially at night, because if she eats a good dinner, a good meal before she goes to sleep, she sleeps longer for that first stretch if she wakes up at all. And then she has her bottle, she has her magnesium, she's nice and relaxed. So more protein at night, that can mean giving your child some kind of like Greek yogurt, because that is very full of protein, or that can mean giving them more meat if they'll eat more meat. With Adeline in particular, it's a little bit hard for us to get her to eat meat. So on the nights when we've incorporated that, that has helped a lot. And getting more calories, obviously. So like a banana, or you could do some oatmeal, basically like a top-off meal right before bedtime. Great idea. So you can try that. My doctor also recommended that for Bethany. Our family doctor recommended that for Bethany when she was starting to sleep through the night. So he recommended incrementing protein because it takes longer for your body to digest it and you stay satisfied for longer. The other thing that has really helped a lot, and I've noticed on the nights when she kind of fusses and is starting to wake up, is to have her in a weighted sleep sack. So there is the nested bean, I think it's called the nested bean or the Zen bean sack. I will put the name here and I will also show a picture of it because it's washing right now. But it basically, it just has a very lightly weighted bean sack on their chest. And Adeline, we started shushing her to sleep and kind of transitioning into her gentle sleep training, where we'll put our hands on her chest as she's going to sleep and we shush her to sleep, and we'll stand there next to her crib and we wait till she goes to sleep. Well, when she wakes up and fusses in the middle of the night, sometimes I'll hear her on the monitor and I'm like, okay, she's starting to wake up, and I wait a little bit. I always try to do this with both girls. I wait just a little bit and I see if they're gonna go back to sleep, because you don't want to run into their room and wake them up even more if their body is naturally trying to go back to sleep, because you do eventually naturally start doing that as a human being, as a child, where your body will try to put itself back to sleep. And so I've noticed on the nights when she is wearing her sack, as long as we've done all the other steps for her sleep, she will often just doze back off. And it's amazing because she just feels like comforted, you know. She feels like there's a little hand on her chest and she's good, and she goes back to sleep. Sometimes she'll just roll over and go back to sleep. And then the other thing is keeping the temperature of her room at an optimal level. So I've noticed this room gets very cold. This used to be our master bedroom, and when we slept in here, it would get really cold and Bethany's would stay kind of warm, which was ideal because babies sleep, you know, better in climates that are not super cold, because they kick the blankets off, you know, or they're in a sleep sack, but maybe the sleep sack doesn't provide enough warmth. So I've been tweaking a little bit what she wears to bed, and I found kind of that fleece jammies and keeping our house around 71 degrees, because this room gets a lot colder than that. It gets about 70 with that. And then having the lightest weight sleep sack on top of that has actually been the best combination for her to stay warm. And you can look up a bunch of different stuff on like what to dress your kids in on Pinterest. There's quite a bit of like it'll tell you the TOG, which is the basically just the weight of a blanket or a sleep sack, and then also jammies, like what to dress them in to make sure that they are at optimal comfort for whatever temperature you have your house set to. So those are the things in conjunction that I would say have really helped her to sleep at night. We also have blackout curtains in here. We have a sound machine, and also oils have helped immensely. Putting lavender in her diffuser or vetiver has helped as well. And I know that it's all like a moving puzzle, and there's always parts that move. But as a parent, you have that intuition as to what it is. And I know it's so hard to figure out sometimes, but if you listen with your gut and your mama instincts, you will figure it out. Just like we figured it out, you will figure it out. You or your husband or your husband will figure it out. I'm sure of it. If you enjoyed this video, if you liked it, please give me a little like. Consider subscribing. I would love to have you join our family. And I will see you very soon in another video, either on motherhood, interior design, or homemaking. And I'm very grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I hope it was super informative, and I will see you very soon. I think I already repeated myself like 3 times, but there you have it. Bye, guys.